Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative Headline News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar. Starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago. The use of prolonged SOEs by Trinidad and Tobago and the impact of such measures on civil liberties was flagged. You hear the word, my dear UNC fanatics, my police lovers outside here? Flagged as a concern in a 2025 report by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. In its 2026, so just imagine. In its 2025 annual report, the IACHR observed that the continued reliance on states of emergency in Belize, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago raised several concerns regarding the impact of these emergency measures on persons' fundamental rights and freedoms, including their rights to expression, association, and personal liberty within these states. You see, what it is the fanatics, the UNC fanatics failing to understand, but they knew it under the PNM. They were talking about police state. They were talking about autocracy, dictatorship. What they're failing to understand right about now is that when a government continues to use crime as an excuse to impose a state of emergency, you are leaping. You're no longer creeping. You're leaping towards a dictatorship because you continue to suspend these citizens' rights. Rights to privacy in their home. Let me state it for you all. Rights to privacy in your home, because a police officer that's supposed to invade your home without a warrant, and yet they could do so right about now, no matter who you are, right? You're also a right to be released from custody if you have been arrested and questioned. You're supposed to be released if there's insufficient evidence in order to charge you with a crime, right? Those are the things. And also, you have the rights to protest wherever you want as long as it is peaceful. You understand? And also, well, of course, if you have to march, well, then you ask for permission, and then the police commissioner is supposed to give you the permission to march. To me, that should have never been part of the Constitution or the laws in the first place. I don't know how you can have a democracy and yet you have to beg the state for permission to march. To me, that was always autocratic, but then it's the PNM that founded the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, that is one huge flaw to begin with. But nevertheless, and the UNC fanatics right now ignoring those rights and saying, oh, if you're a law-abiding citizen, then you have nothing to worry about. That is not true, because people are protesting as well and being accused by the police service of inciting violence wrongfully. Myself, I was part of pushback, quite a few different pushback. I can't remember which ones, about 3 different pushback, right? 2 or 3 different pushback I went to with the Grong report with Andy Williams and Lennox Smith, right? And Michael Kerr. And at the end of the day, we were peacefully protesting as well. Police chased us. And I think at times people were arrested, right? But no one was detained for months upon months and all kind of different nonsense, people. And we said it was wrong for people to be arrested for just carrying out or exercising their constitutional rights to protest. We believed in protesting back then, and now we're condemning it now. Well, they're condemning it because that is not we. I not know UNC. I voted for UNC my entire life, but I ain't no UNC. I stand up for any government, any party that performs well in office. I will stand with them. UNC used to perform well in office in the past, and that's why I used to stand with them. The report noted with concern the continued use of states of emergency by several Caribbean states throughout the region as part of security policies aimed at addressing rising levels of violence and insecurity. The report went on to examine the use of SOEs in these countries while stating that the Commission also notes with concern the prolonged use of SOEs in Trinidad and Tobago by tyrant camps. Tyrant camps. They didn't say tyrant camps. I am saying, who prolonged it? Tyrant camps. It said according to public available reports as of January 31st, 2026, months ago, so you could imagine, as of January, TNT had spent a cumulative total of 301 days under SOEs since December 2024? No. Let's be clear. That 301 will include a certain amount of days under Emperor Thanos Rowley, because Rowley, of course, was the one who declared crime to be a health emergency or something like that, a health crisis, and imposed a state of emergency in order to be able to combat crime. And you know, some UNC police lovers and people that just don't care about our democratic rights supported it even back then. And then, of course, Kamala came and continued it. So I can imagine it's more than 301 days now in total, right? Because I have as of January 31st. Good. The report said subsequently, on March 3rd, 2026, the state declared another period of emergency in response to a surge in violent gang-related crime and intelligence of planned attacks on members of the protective services. Surge my foot. It was the same thing. It's the same thing again. That has been happening throughout Trinidad and Tobago, gang crimes, right? Mass shootings have been taking place throughout Trinidad and Tobago for over 2 decades. Over 2 decades. So it was there was no valid reason. There was no valid reason to impose an SOE. On June 10th, 2026, the state of emergency was further extended for a period of 3 months and is scheduled to expire in September 2026, the IACHR report noted. So, you know, most likely, sadly, the Hadids going to have to remain in prison until September. Right now, we're in July. So they have some time to go. I'm telling you, they're going to win millions, you know, millions. They could probably even end up emptying the treasury. I mean, not literally, but a lot of money. The commission recalled that the use of emergency powers, listen to this, are exceptional measures that must be limited in duration and scope and may only be applied with the principles of legality, necessity, proportionality, and temporality. This is underlined in the IACHR's recent resolution 2026 on organized crime and human rights in the Americas, which reiterates that prolonged or repeated reliance on emergency powers risks normalizing, and that's exactly what Tyrant Camps is doing, these extraordinary measures, and consequently may undermine the full enjoyment of human rights, including due process guarantees and protections against arbitrary detention. The UNC fanatics outside there love to talk about due process. David Welch, what due process taking place right now? Up to now, the Hardys haven't been charged. Up to now, they cannot face the courts to plead their case. So what due process? They are being detained because of a PDO without charges being laid, without being able to go to court for a trial, for whatever charges they're talking about, attempted assassination or whatsoever, the prime minister. Conspiracy to assassinate. So what due process? There's no due process. The process has been halted by this administration. The IACHR reiterates that while states have duty to guarantee citizen security and combat organized crime, any emergency measures adopted must comply with international human rights standards, including the principles of legality, necessity, proportionality, and temporality, the 2025 report said. And let me make it clear, what they're talking about there, necessity and stuff like that. I've said it over and over again. And other individuals, other scholars, other educated people, not like myself, I only have 6 CXC passes, right? 1s and 2s. People outside there that are far more intelligent than me, than I, have made it clear that a state of emergency is only supposed to be declared when there's an actual emergency, people. So, if there's a natural disaster and the country, there's widespread devastation throughout the country, you declare a temporary state of emergency to probably prevent looting and whatsoever, and you know, and until they get things under control, and then you end the state of emergency. The other reason is for if there's an attempted coup, an insurrection, or if there's widespread rioting. We're not talking about peaceful protesting. Widespread rioting, then you can declare a temporary state of emergency in order to end that violence. And if there's an insurrection, in order to be able to end the insurrection and arrest those who attempted to commit that crime, and then end the SOE. That is what an SOE used to be used by governments in the past. That is what Robinson did. Robinson didn't continue to declare an SOE afterwards because he wanted to say, oh, there's still an existential threat to national security. No, he ended the SOE after everything got under control. And the individuals who attempted to overthrow the government were under arrest. Right? In Trinidad and Tobago in 2026, suspects are being arrested, and yet the SOE continues. So it looks as though there are countless suspects. And how many more years they need to be able to find these rest of suspects? Next 4 years, Alistair Guevara, Roger Alexander, John Jeremy, and Tyrant Camps. You all need, 4 more years in order to be able to, a little less than 4 more years now, right? In order to be able to apprehend these other individuals, you're taking the entire country population for fools. That is what you all are doing. I'm telling you, it is really sad. It is really sad what is taking place. Going on, the Commission's report last year also emphasized a need to preserve constitutional rights during period where the state is using emergency powers such as an SOE, including the rights of those detained by law enforcement during this period. And that's not happening right about now. The report asserted that states must ensure that all persons detained during security operations are afforded judicial guarantees. David Welch, due process? Where did due process right now, David Welch? And access to due process protections consistent with the American Declaration of the Rights and Duties of Man, the American Convention on Human Rights, and other applicable inter-American standards. Thankfully, an international body, has spoken out. I want to hear what Tyrant Camps and her sidekick, Roger Alexander, who I believe right now is behaving more like the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago than even Camps. He's the one ruling the country right now. And the TTPS by his side, acting more like a police officer than a servant of the people. My response, I believe he's the one actually controlling the country right now. My response, all the UNC fanatics for supporting the prolonged suspension of citizens' constitutional rights will suddenly change their tune when the founders of evil in TNT, the PNM, returns to office in 2030. I don't want them to return it, but what Kamala is doing, what Roger Alexander is doing, is destroying the UNC's chances of winning in 2030. And therefore, the founders of evil, the founders of autocracy, the founders of tribalism in Trinidad and Tobago will return. The PNM is not dead, people. The PNM is not dead. But when that time comes, don't you dare call for anyone to join pushback protests. Andy Williams, Lennox Smith, I don't want to hear all that talk about nothing about any more pushback, Don't come on the radio station calling for no pushback, All right. Don't you dare call for anyone to join any pushback protests when that time comes. Sit back and trust the system. And David Welch, trust the system. Due process. The same way you're doing right now under Tyrant Camps. This level of ignorance and spiritual blindness amongst our peoples due to political fanaticism is deeply concerning. And it is on both sides, people. It just switches each time. Right now, the PNM people are crying dictatorship because their party not in office. In 2030, when the PNM wins and the PNM starts to violate our constitutional rights, and the UNC start back to ball dictatorship, and police state. When that time comes, the PNM people will just say, obey the law. They just end up switching roles, That's all these fanatics do. That's all they do.
Trinidad and Tobago weather report for Tuesday, July 21, 2026. On Tuesday, July 21, 2026, Trinidad and Tobago will experience mostly cloudy, sunny, hazy and breezy daytime conditions, featuring a maximum temperature of 28 degrees Celsius and a minimum temperature of 24 degrees Celsius. The day will stay warm with peak feels-like temperatures reaching up to 32 degrees Celsius around midday. A mild chance of rain persists throughout the day, peaking at 25% with localized light rain potential early in the morning and during the early afternoon hours. Winds will remain steady from the east at around 5 to 8 miles per hour. Humidity ranges from 71% during daytime peak heat up to 91% in the early morning. The UV index reaches a moderate peak of 5 at midday, requiring standard sun protection if outdoors. Saharan dust may present mild haze, so sensitive individuals should track air quality parameters.
Regional news now. A new leafy vegetable and root crop processing and packaging facility at Langley Park has been handed over to the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Rural Transformation under the Republic of India's SME Development Project. India's High Commissioner to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, His Excellency Subhash P. Gupta, officially presented the facility to Agriculture Minister Israel Bruce during a handover ceremony. The Langley Park facility is part of a US $1 million investment by the government of India to strengthen food security and boost agricultural value addition. I always say that no matter how small your country is, you should try to make it as self-sufficient when it pertains to food production as possible. Even here in Trinidad and Tobago, I have no problem with importing products. I love imported products as well, but we should be more self-sufficient when it pertains to food production here in Trinidad and Tobago. Invest a lot more billions of dollars should be allocated during the fiscal budget for agriculture. The project has also includes upgrades to agro-processing hubs at La Croix and Lourdes. Permanent Secretary Colville King said the facility will improve the packaging and marketing of local produce, helping farmers increase value, expand markets, and earn more revenue, which is important. Generating revenue. You could of course, if you're doing exportation, you'll definitely generate foreign revenue.
One of the challenges is that we have marketing facilities that were otherwise just left, unutilized. And what we're doing is activating these facilities. Of course, we got support from a trusted partner by way of the Republic of India under the Seeds Initiative. And we would like to thank, of course, Ambassador Gupta and your predecessors, the government of India, for the support that we're getting in making this a reality. At the end of the day, I like to refer to a much quoted proverb: if you want to go far, go with company. And our partnership with India is absolutely something that we cherish, and we're going to make it work.
International news now. President Trump vows Netanyahu won't be arrested in the U.S. in any way, shape, or form after New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, a leftist radical jihadist, pretending to be leftist. He ain't no actual leftist. Give him a chance, he will declare Sharia law in New York. So after New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani pledged to seek the arrest of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu if he visits New York for the UN General Assembly in September, U.S. President Donald Trump vowed that this would never happen in a post on Truth Social. Benjamin Netanyahu will not be arrested in any way, shape, or form while in the United States of America. He is fighting against the Islamic Republic of Iran, which killed 52,000 or even more innocent protesters and has spent the last 47 years killing American soldiers and others, Trump wrote. The only ones that should be arrested are the people that led Iran into this unprecedented spiral of death and destruction, something that should have been dealt with years ago by previous presidents. And you know who else should be arrested? Anyone who was conspiring to communicate with the Iranian officials in New York. To me, that is treason. 2 Palestinian men were arrested in connection with the fires that damaged dozens of homes in the community of Havat Gilad in Samaria over the weekend. the Israel police announced on Monday. Now, of course, the world, the radical leftists and far-right QAnon world people, they call it West Bank. But Christians and everybody else knows it to be Judea and Samaria. The two suspects were arrested and brought to the Judea and Samaria District Court on Sunday for further investigation and questioning over their suspected involvement in the fires. Decisions regarding further legal proceedings, including whether to request an extension of their detention, will be made in accordance with the findings of the investigation, the police said in a statement. Nevertheless, people try to get it done quickly, let due process take its course. So these individuals, once it has sufficient evidence, can spend time in prison.
Bible quote of the day. Psalm 95, 5-7. The Creator worthy of worship and our shepherd. The sea is his, for he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. Come, let us bow down in worship, let us kneel before the Lord our Maker, for he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, the flock under his care.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's headline news. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name.